we go. Welcome to the Carver Conservation Commission meeting. Thank you. For Wednesday, March 19th, 2025. This meeting will be cablecast by Area 58 Community Access Media, Channel 15, and would be posted by Area 58 on YouTube as soon as possible. We have a very light agenda this evening, and we actually have one thing. Two things, because we have to approve the minutes from our last meeting. So, without any further delay, let's get right to our continued public hearing on 0, 15, 16, 17, 19, 21, 25, and 27 Fuller Street. This is an abbreviated Notice of Resource Area Delineation, and it's DEP file number SE 126-686. Okay.
This is from Brad Holmes.
I have that, yeah.
You can pass that to Celia. Brad Holmes.
Okay, I'm signed in now.
Thank you.
Are you here for this?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Just wanted to make sure you're in the right place. Okay, good. Okay,
Hi.
hello, welcome back.
Hi, Pat Carver from P&P Consulting. We're back with a revised DNRAD plan for the multiple lots on Fuller Street, as you noted. As a result of our last meeting, Brad Holmes and I went out there, did some further investigation. We looked at some of the older maps, and we did come to the conclusion that the channel from the bog pond on the south side of the street and coming through the culvert was representative of where the original stream was. Is it the exact original stream bed? No, but we did find what we believe to be remnants of the original stone culvert right next to the existing culvert. So it's pretty much in the same place.
Okay.
We continued our investigation on the properties going up to the north and the northwest, and there really is no, beyond the end of the culvert, there really is no defined flow path from there because it's all cranberry bogs.
So it doesn't have an outlet?
No, I mean, eventually it does, but there is no direct flow path. It goes to the bogs and gets controlled. So we have updated the plan to show the 100 and 200 foot riparian zones from the channel and the culvert on the south end of the property. And we also extended our survey so that we better defined some of the remaining bogs on the property. And we've also extended those buffer zones along Fuller Street, so that those are more clearly, visible to the commission and to Emil. So that's pretty much it. So I'll answer any questions or hear what Emil has to say.
I'll go first if you want.
I mean, I yield to the chair how he wants to handle it, but.
Well, I mean, I've been out there a couple of times. I did not make the site visit this morning, but I'm familiar with all this. Ann did make it this morning along with Emil. I think the question that we asked is where the water went, and I think that, if Brad's report here, which I looked at, basically confirms what's been said. It kind of just kind of spreads into the bog.
Well, I mean, I would disagree with that.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah, and I definitely, I would disagree that the stream does not have an outlet. It does have an outlet, like Patrick said.
In the northwest corner.
Yeah, no.
There definitely is an outlet, and there definitely is a stream there, which is why they've marked, the culvert. Would you mind just waiting and making your public comment
You can
after
come up and
our
make comments
discussion?
after, yeah.
So Ann and I were on the site today, and we did a site visit this morning, and we met with Dimitri Hasiotis, who's the owner of the property. Demetrius, I think that's his name. So we walked a similar path that you and Brad had walked around the northwest side of the bog, and I think, initially we had looked at the 1933 USGS map where it shows the stream. The initial layout of the stream, it comes under Fuller Street and then it goes to the northwest into the wetlands, which are shown in this map over here. But where it currently, used to go, currently there's a bog road there, and at some point the connection was filled in. This is a bog that's been there for, probably like 80 years, something like that. So this whole area has been altered, and I would agree with Patrick, there is no defined channel of the stream. Once it enters into this bog system, then it kind of goes all over the place because, again, these bogs have been here for a long time and they've been altered many times throughout, and in recent history as well as, throughout the years of when this existed. But there definitely is an outlet. If you go to the north of the property, there's a, that's where the cranberry operation has their headquarters. And if you go just to the east of that, to the north, there's a bog pond there, and there's probably about a 2-foot diameter concrete culvert that goes through that and enters into the pond and then enters back into the northwestern cranberry bog at the rear there. So you can see that on any aerial pictures that you look at, as well as we were out at the site today. The water definitely goes through these bogs and eventually it ends up there, where it does continue to flow on down. So I spoke to Brad Holmes this afternoon, just trying to get his take on this. And he, his memo states, the existing channel that was there is no longer there, which is why he states in his memo that, the stream channel, it no longer exists in the fashion that it did at one point. But in my opinion, there definitely is a stream on the site. There isn't a defined channel in the bog, but it has an entry point, which is shown on this plan, and then it has an exit point that we can confirm. The question really becomes, where does the stream go when it goes into the bog? Speaking with Brad Holmes today, he's looked at a lot of projects like this, a lot of streams. He's a professional wetland scientist and does this for a living. Essentially, what he said is, most of the time when you look at a wetland bog, you can see where that channel goes. In most bog systems, you can actually see, where that stream, originally goes. And for the most part, what happens is cranberry bog owners have squared off bogs and they've straightened out those streams, which once were, circuitous streams, they've become straight lines through the middle of bogs. In this case, we don't have that because this bog has kind of spread out in multiple directions over the years. It has several water sources and reservoirs on the site, as well as a bunch of wetland bogs. So what he said is that, when he sees a site like this, he typically, doesn't really find that all the cranberry bog channels themselves should be designated as streams. He would say, it's not really worth it to find out where that flow is, going at the time. It's kind of he's just interested in determining where does it come into the system and where does it exit the system. So, I think in his memo there, he stated two things which I don't think are really true. One is that there's no outflow. There is an outflow. It's just not in the same place where the initial stream was. And he also states that cranberry bog canals and channels can't be considered riverfront or streams, which is not the case. I think there's many cases in Carver where we see streams that run through cranberry canals. The Wetlands Protection Act does state that man-made canals, such as the Cape Cod Canal, won't be considered as riverfront. But I think in this case, cranberry bog canals can be considered streams. It's just in a bog like this, you don't really have a defined channel. You have all of these, canals that go around the edge of the bogs, but there's not really one through line that defines exactly where the stream is. So it becomes very difficult to follow once it enters the bog. And so I guess what Brad said to me this afternoon was that, he finds that in a case like this, you kind of mark the riverfront where the stream is entering the bog, and then it would also be marked where it's exiting the bog, which, has been changed over the years, but it now is currently going, directly north through the property and out to the back of the site where the western cranberry bog is. So it's kind of a unique situation. It's a tough situation because this bog has been manipulated so many times over the years, and it's unfortunate that at some point that stream was manipulated and cut off from where it initially flowed. It's clear if you walk the site, and I wish more of us were able to do that today, but it's clear that that wetland to the northwest of the site is very wet. It's full of water right now, and same thing with the bogs. There's a lot of water in the bog right now. So the area is very hydrologically connected. You have about like a 10-foot bog road separating the wetland bog and a wetland that's full of water right now. So there's no question that these wetlands are connected to each other hydrologically, whether it's under the ground or through the culvert that does exit the bog system. It's very difficult to determine at this point in time where that stream would be. And you can't really call every single bog ditch in the bog system as a stream. I don't think that's fair. So, the guidance that we have based on, this plan and Brad Holmes, wetlands professional, reviewing this is that, you kind of leave it as, where the water is entering the bog and where it's exiting the bog. So that's kind of the information that we have right now. Again, it kind of affects this project in a minor way because the riverfront is shown. It only really enters onto one of the lots that they're proposing. Whereas if you did define a stream going, north or east, it could have a riverfront that affects it differently, but it's not really something that, having visited the site, is very easy to tell. So with that being said, I think the plan that we have before us right now is definitely reasonable based on the review of a professional wetland scientist, multiple reviews of this site, and having walked the site, I would tend to agree with it, other than the fact that there definitely is outflow, and should be considered that there is a stream and water flow still running through this site.
Yep, and I would agree with that. If we were doing anything up on that northerly section, that we would have to add that in and show that.
Yep.
Yep.
I'm just looking at the satellite.
So I think what I'd add is my understanding of how you go about actually finding the stream is to look at the land before it's been manipulated by humans. So this happens to be almost 100 years that it's been a cranberry bog.
Yeah, I see that.
But if you go back before that, what you will see is a stream that meandered around, and then
You
at
can
first
go
they
anyway.
probably just
Here.
straightened it,
That way.
and now it's just bifurcated everywhere.
Yeah, like I said, when we were investigating this culvert, on the south side, we actually found right next to the existing culvert a
The
sinkhole.
original, yeah.
And me being curious, I looked in it, and you can actually see there's remnants of the original stone culvert,
Yeah, I'm sure.
which I'm sure when they, widened Fuller Street from being a horse path to a road,
Right.
that wasn't wide enough, so they got rid of that and they put the concrete coated CMP pipe in there.
Right.
So that pipe is fairly old.
Right.
So I'm guessing that goes back to the widening of Fuller Street.
And I think the other point that I'm interested in, just for everyone, is that, you know, we see a lot of canals in our street, in our cranberry bogs and Carver, but just because they're a canal doesn't mean they're not a stream. So I see plenty of streams that have been converted to canals, but it doesn't mean they don't count as riverfront.
No, and I think we agreed on that, you know, if this was a case where, you know, like you said, some cranberry bogs you look at, they have that center channel, you know,
With the
and that
current.
center channel usually becomes a direct connection through the culverts. So, you know, I think in that situation, I think I would lean to agree with you that if we had that type of situation where we had a defined center channel, you know, it would be tough to argue that that wasn't or intended to be, you know, the current track of the stream. We just don't have that.
Right. So yeah, and I think, yeah, there is an outflow, so I think for the people that have, you know, we do know that there's a lot of water on the other side of Fuller Street, which some of the abutters might be on the other side, and they have concerns that, like, when, you know, we have a drought or whatever, a lot of water comes from over there, because that is the direction that river is coming from, and it might sort of empty out that area, and they probably have some concerns about their wells, and then it's going all the way through, and then going to Craig Weston's bogs, which, if anything happened to the water flow here, that could impact them as well. So I think we need to just have that on public record, that we're understanding there's an inflow and there's an outflow. Do you have any, Dave, do you have any input from a geological standpoint in terms of
really.
like the water flow or anything you can
Not as
talk to
far
the
as the
abutters
river is
about?
concerned or anything, no, I mean, as far as, even if there was a stream right through the middle of this, it wouldn't impact, you know, where they're potentially gonna put houses here anyway, probably. So, where they have it marked here, the 200-foot riverfront, I think that's, seems to be fair, you know. I don't know. It's like you said, I don't know.
I'm looking at the satellite image, and the bog that's immediately adjacent, where the culvert is, that you had said is an older bog, and I think it's easier to see on a photo.
Yep.
But that is bisected by a lot of canals. There is a canal that goes through the center of it that is the only canal on the entire property that is meandering. So that seems to me to probably have been the original stream bed. And they built bogs on either side of it and then put the canals off from the side of that. So that's the only thing that kind of makes sense. Since we can't say every canal is a stream, I would have to say that in my opinion, the one that goes through the middle of that first bog, so to speak,
Yep.
and has a stream-like.
And is
path
that the
to it.
one that goes to the left or the right?
No, because the one to the left, if you look at it, that's made up of three straight canals.
Yeah.
The one that goes through the middle has a meandering path like a stream does. It kind of bisects the active cranberry bog that's closest to the culvert. That's what I'm seeing on the satellite.
I agree.
Oh, yeah. I get you.
You see what I'm saying?
It kind of goes up.
The one right in the middle here.
Yeah, that goes that way, to the
Yeah.
left.
Yes, yeah, but
Yes.
not the one along the road, this one here, kind of.
Yes, yes. But what I'm saying is, and I would agree with you. If I had to guess, the stream is going to run to the left, and then where, you know, it used to go under this road here, essentially it's running through these bogs and coming out up here.
Right.
So that would be my guess. If there is, you know, if there was to be a defined channel, it would be the one, you know, through the bogs to the left and around to the northwest. And now it's going out on the north, where it used to go directly out into the, you know, west. All of those wetlands back there are connected.
It looks like this is a culvert or a flume right here.
Yep.
On that corner, which, you know, the natural flow of water would go in here and then
Yep.
would go this way.
Yep, and then there is a center channel on
And
that.
yeah.
So I tend to agree with that. That's where I would assume the water would go.
What do we
but-
do with that? I mean,
I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
like in a case like this, it's it's been manipulated so much, this whole system. Essentially, the cranberry bog managers have control of all of these different flumes. Even, you know, on the other side of the street, there's, you know, another cranberry bog owner, and there's this cranberry bog owner, and then the water's flowing down to, you know, the bogs in the rear of this site. So all of these different, everywhere that there's a culvert, you know, depending on how many boards these guys put in and take out at any given time of year, that's gonna affect, you know, the flow of this water. So, you know, they could board that side up and the water may flow around to the right side of the property, which changes the path of the flow. And it's very difficult to make a determination at this point whether, you know, unless you want to say that, you know, there's essentially a circular stream that runs around this whole
Right, but by
changing
changing the water flow by using boards at different parts of the season, wouldn't that make it an intermittent stream?
I don't think so, because it's always flowing, and it is, you know,
No, I would say that there is one perennial stream, but I think that if you board up, you know, other canals, that
I don't know that you can really say that, because the bog system itself has been altered so many times over the years.
Right.
It's very difficult to make a determination on where that is. So, you know, I do agree with you. I think that the natural flow of the water probably goes around through that first bog to the north, and then, you know, now that it's been diverted, it goes through those top bogs to the northwest. So that would be my guess based off our site visit this morning. And whether you really want to designate that as a stream, that I think that's up to the discretion of the commission. You know, I think the recommendation from the wetland scientist Brad Holmes, from ECR, who looked at this property, is that, you know, he was hesitant to make a determination on where the channel is, and, you know, his recommendation based on his experience is that, you know, you just mark where it comes in and where it goes out. But I can see, you know, where the commission would want to take a more, you know, specific approach to, you know, a case like this. Again, is it going to affect these projects? Not a whole lot. If the water does wrap around in the way that we're saying, maybe that 200-foot buffer zone reaches those lots 1 and 2. Maybe it doesn't. It's kind of hard to tell based on how this map is, but, you know, it's such a large site. Like, looking at it, you know, in the big picture, it may look like, you know, it's you know, 200 feet would reach those lots. I don't know that it would, but I think we'd have to have that kind of drawn out and put on another revised plan if that's what you guys want to do.
Well, my question for you, Savory, and the board is, you know, it might be good to get like a unbiased second opinion in terms of having a wetland scientist look at this. I don't know what you usually do. I like Brad. I think he does great work, but like he claimed there was no outflow to this. There is an outflow. So there were some inaccuracies that concern me, because the fact that there is an outflow has major impact to other people, and that was incorrect. So there could be a river that's traceable here. I know we get other opinions, and when it comes to, you know, determining uplands and wetlands, we get second opinions. So I don't know if that's something the board typically does or not. I just have real concerns about it, but I defer to your experience.
I'm just reading Brad's thing again.
But he chatted with Emil later and acknowledged that Emil was.
Yes, and he said, like, my first question to him was, did you go and look at that culvert at the rear of the property? He said he did. You know, you were with him, and you know, he acknowledged that he did, you know, look at that. And after, you know, discussing with him, you know, whether or not he would suggest that, you know, there be another, you know, designation of that culvert as a riverfront, he would say yes to that, as well as Patrick agrees. You know, so it's, you know, that's pretty clear at this point that there definitely is an inflow and outflow that should be considered riverfront. It's just, you know, once it enters the bog system, there's so many different pathways that this water is going, and at, you know, different parts of the year, different times of the year, it's going to be managed differently by this bog owner. So I think it is again, it's difficult to say where this stream goes, and, you know, maybe it is worth taking another look at with a, you know, unbiased consultant. But I think right now we don't have a definitive answer on that.
I mean, do we want to hear from the abutters, or?
We will. We'll hear from the abutters. I'm just, you know, I think we all agree that the stream does not go to the northeast. It does not go along lots 3, 4, 5, and 6. Is that kind of what we're thinking?
I don't know what I don't know. So I think I haven't seen this property before 1930s, when it was, like, really to determine it, you need to look at it before it was manipulated by people to know what the original stream was. It could go right through those lots. I agree, it looks like it doesn't, but I'm not a wetland scientist. I don't consider myself an expert.
No, and I think, you know, I think we all agree that, you know, there was something there, it was shown on the maps.
Yeah,
You know, but, you know, as we've talked about, it's just been so manipulated.
it has.
You know, there's no way to tell, you know, I mean, we would have to, in reality, you would have to get into a very detailed elevation survey of everything to figure out, you know, is there a defined gravity sloping channel that you can consider, you know, what was the original stream bed. You know, and I can see what you're all looking at on the I had to look at the aerial photo, because it looks, I agree, it looks a lot different in the aerial photo than it does on the ground.
It
You know, when
does.
you're out there looking at it up close.
What's the end game here, though? When we
But-
say, we say, okay, this stream goes here to the northwest and over here, I mean,
Those lots.
it's not gonna affect the lots, the current lots that they have planned, it doesn't look like to me.
Well, there's two lots.
Maybe this one over here, which is that lot 1, I guess. Or is that lot 2?
And 2.
That's lot 2. Well, there's 1 and 2 there, right? I mean, possibly influence that one a little bit, but there's already the 100-foot buffer there, which this is, you know, it's not gonna make a significant difference, I don't think, on what they do here.
Yeah,
I mean,
and, you know, not to go down the rabbit hole on everybody, but
yeah.
we also have the issue that, you know, this area in particular here that, you know, that would be impacted, it's all completely disturbed now. And it's been historically disturbed. There was a building out there, there's pavement. It's been very altered topographically. So,
Yeah, that is evident from our site
And
visit.
isn't there a bog pond there that's not, that isn't owned by,
no, there's a little bog pond right here.
but is it not owned by Hickory Hill, isn't it? Isn't it?
This little bog pond?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's on the property.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. It's just, it's just kind of like its own little thing
Yeah, it's not
hanging
doing
out there.
anything. Yeah. Wasn't there a pond we looked at where you said it wasn't their property?
Well, it's not on the lots, the proposed lots.
Okay,
I
that's
think
what he
it's
meant.
just beyond, which it's on, you know, the bog.
Yeah, it would be,
owner's
that would
property.
remain on the bog property.
Yeah.
So that bog pond, is that considered a wetlands or not, or is that like, it's not shown
It's-
here as that sort of?
Considered a man-made, you know, tailwater recovery pond. And a small ponds like that typically aren't considered
They are
wetlands.
considered a wetlands,
No,
okay.
because they're, you know, they're clearly man-made for the purpose of agriculture. Just looking at this is the 1967 USGS map. and it looks like there's a maze of channels running around this bog. There was a
raised
mounded area in the middle of the
There was a hill there.
There's a huge
yeah, there's
hill.
a huge hill there at one point back in the 60s. Now there's a large cranberry bog there, but
Interesting.
that kind of just shows like how many different channels back in 1967 existed on this property. And there's, it's very complex hydrology. There's no question that the wetlands, to the south and north of this site are connected through this property. It's just, at this point we're looking at, confirming the resource area boundaries for, these particular lots, which are the lots at the front of the street. We're not looking at the resource area delineation for the entire bog property. So, if we were looking at that, I think we would have to look at this a bit more closely and determine, whether or not, the stream bed is going to impact any potential project on that rear property. But, for this initial look, I don't really think that doing a really in-depth analysis of this is going to have a huge impact on the proposed lots.
The 1933 map shows the stream.
Yep,
Yep.
no question
And then
about
in
it.
1938, it's gone. It's all cranberry bogs.
Right, I see that. I'm just wondering if there's a way to overlay that stream from the 33 map, because Fuller Street's there with the little jog in the road. If there's a way to kind of superimpose that stream path on top of the cranberry bog and use that as a stream bed.
I mean, I think that's what you proposed before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you asked them to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just don't think it wouldn't be accurate to the way that the hydrology is now. Like, based on what Brad Holmes said, is that initial stream runs underneath that bog road, which, it's pretty clear that was closed off, at some point. Does water still go underneath that bog road? I would say so. Absolutely, it goes through the groundwater there, and there's connection there. But it's not really functioning, as a traditional stream channel.
Okay, so it looks to me like we have three choices. The first choice is that every canal is a stream. Second choice is no canal is a stream. And the third choice is that we decide which canal is the stream.
Or you hire a consultant to tell you which canal
To
is
do it for us? Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but I mean,
If they would, you don't even know.
are there people who could do that? I mean, why wouldn't Brad be able to do that? Why did Brad do that?
Brad's take on it is that, not to speak for Brad too much, but his take on it is, when I look at these bogs, I look for the, direct channel, and if I can't find that direct channel, then I just mark the inflow and the outflow of this bog. So I'm sure he could do more of an in-depth look at it and provide more information, but he was just out there for one day with Patrick, and that's not really what he was looking at that time. He was looking at overall, I don't see a defined channel here, so I'm just gonna mark
Do you feel we should get a
inflow.
second set of eyes?
I think it couldn't hurt. The only thing is I just don't really think it's going to have a big impact one way or the other on these projects. But yeah, I think it would probably be the most effective way of kind of getting to the bottom of where this is at.
All right,
That's the purpose. This is ANRAD. We're just to determine boundaries here, right? That's what we're doing, right?
Yes, I know.
So,
so we want a second opinion,
okay.
all right?
Now, how do we do that?
What's the procedure?
Yeah.
I have to read our bylaw a little bit more closely, but I'm pretty sure we have something in our bylaw that says, you know, the commission can require the applicant to hire a consultant, you know,
Yeah.
to take that second look. So, you know, in this case, I think that this would be a situation where that would be, that would come into play for this.
Yeah, let's see, let me just find it quickly. If I can.
This might be an opportunity for you guys that are butters. If you want to see the map, you can come here and take a look at it. And you can see where the, while they're looking stuff up here, you can see where the lots are right there. See on the easel right there, if you want. Can you see that? And the different colors represent different boundaries. Most important ones are,
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Red. Red is the 60, yeah, red is 20 and blue.
What's the delineation?
That's 100.
So there's a stream that goes in here, and then there's a bog pond here, and then here's water running out that way. And so that's, you know, the inflow, and the outflow comes out here. If you look at the 1933 map, the original stream ran this way and it actually came right under this bog road here and into the wetland here. So,
They changed this whole
you know,
thing.
now we
That's
think,
these two lots down.
yeah, so there's two lots here. We think, based on our site visit, that the stream probably flows here and then it goes this way and now it's
But this is,
that makes the most sense to me, having this site. Although there are mentions to the logs this way, obviously.
This is all.
So,
We can't.
Yeah.
and yeah, right here, they just scoop down this, you know,
Dug out.
everything else, yes, they're expensive, but he probably doesn't like that. He said this is actually the original stream. And
Really, is that?
it is right, and he's like, they can't tell you.
oh, that's interesting.
He's actually,
essentially that's what they have proposed, that it's gonna have to go before the planning board, in order to get that
he
approved.
is the local scientist.
Yeah, I think for us, we're just trying to figure out, you know,
So, I mean, it actually goes here, which,
if it goes this way.
Yeah, but there's a hill here.
there was, but he went before 19. I can't tell you, that
Interesting.
it's like stuff I can't
Our
understand.
jurisdiction is this 100-foot stream.
It looks exactly like what he had
Yeah.
on this, when he was showing me.
Yeah.
It looks exactly like it. See, it goes off to the left like that.
Just don't know what.
Everything is so connected that just.
So this is 1930.
Due diligence just to make sure now while you are making that decision.
We're all up on top of the hill here.
Yeah, they
just
are,
don't-
but I know.
There it is. I don't know why we all have Jack.
I don't know either,
I don't understand.
but like, my point is like, he's very unbiased.
Yeah, I get it.
And he's super expert, so I actually don't really question it, but
I don't.
he
Yeah.
said you can't use
Yeah.
it.
Thing is, it's weird about that. Not that I'm deciding it could be. I don't know. I'm not a wetlands guy. But
All right, so the consultant fee, I don't know if you're reading this in your document there, but this is an older version of our bylaw. I'm pretty sure it still reads the same. Upon receipt of a permit application or request, at any point during the hearing process, the commission is authorized to require the applicant to pay a fee of reasonable costs and expenses borne by the commission for specific expert, engineering, or other consultant deemed necessary for the commission to come up with a final decision on the application. This fee is called the consultant fee. Specific consultant services may include, but are not limited to, performing, verifying accuracy of resource area delineation survey, which is the case that we have here. Commission may require the payment of the consultant fee at any point. So essentially,
So we would choose an expert. And the applicant would.
yep, we can do that.
I think that's how it's been done in the past,
Okay.
that we would hire someone from our
List.
list, yeah,
Yeah.
our quiver.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it makes sense. You know, like one of the abutters just said, it would be good to know where this stream runs, because if they are going to build houses there and then someone is going to build, be living on this property, then this stream may affect the jurisdiction on their properties, in the future. So it's good to know, where the stream runs. If it is going to affect these other lots, then
Okay, all right.
we should know at this point.
I do have another question, though.
Yep.
I don't know how it changes it, but since these properties have come out of agricultural status, now they are no longer, they're residential now, right? So. how do
And
we-
when you say agricultural status, you're talking about 61A?
It's 61A, right?
Okay, yeah.
How do we treat the wetlands associated? Because that's no longer considered agricultural land. So that is now a true wetland, right? Because it's not.
No,
agricultural.
land and agricultural use, whether it's on residential property, so people often get this mixed up, like 61A is simply a tax designation.
Right.
It doesn't, affect land and agricultural use for the Wetlands Protection Act. If you're a residential property owner, but you have a piece of your property that you use for cultivating,
Yeah.
let's say blueberries, cranberries, that's still land and agricultural use as long as it fits the definitions. You supposedly have to be, aiming to make a profit off of,
Right, but they're not doing that here. So this is no longer
Well,
agricultural land, so then doesn't
Well,
change the
what it is,
designation.
and this is not something that I'm an expert in,
Yeah.
but essentially the applicants are proposing to keep that land in agricultural use, but supply the bog owners an easement on that piece of the property.
But don't each one of those landowners then have to have a farm plan? That's the way it works. And then they know, in order to do that.
I mean,
I'm not arguing with that, I'm just wondering, these are questions, I don't know how it works.
I
Because this is a real strange
I-
situation.
my-
So this
I
is
think that-
part of the
well, no,
problem.
it's exactly
These-
what
these are
happened to
confusing
Lakeview.
Right,
to us,
exactly.
these lots.
Yeah.
yeah.
It
No,
just
my-
doesn't seem to make sense that you can do this.
Yeah,
to me.
again, I haven't really come up on the situation in my experience. This is new to me as well.
Well, Lakeview, the three houses on
It's the same
South
thing.
Main.
Yeah,
Same deal.
but
Same.
whether or not
Need to-
the farm plan for that cranberry bog that was always in place
I think that's
still
probably written into-
applies.
It's probably written into the easement, as opposed to getting each
It's just.
property
Oh,
a farm
yeah.
plan.
Yeah, this is the second time we've seen this, it's just unusual.
Right.
I just don't know what to.
I think the concern that
Yeah.
that was brought up on the Lakeview property was that these original owners of these three lots have an easement with the grower to allow him to harvest.
Right.
Do everything he needs to do to harvest the berries. Now, whether that's an eternal easement, or if these homeowners sell to the next person, and then that person says, I don't want pesticides and herbicides used on my property, how does that affect it?
Right.
But I'm saying, how does it affect us? Is this a true wetland zone? Now, is that
Well, he's saying
65-foot
other
buffer
agricultural
and no touch
exemptions still.
zone? Can they no longer do
Yes.
anything along that, in this area here, because it is a true wetland, because it's no longer agricultural?
It's definitely no matter what happens, it's still a wetland. So it doesn't just
I know,
because
The land is still in agricultural use, it just doesn't enjoy the tax
Tax
benefit.
benefits, so they pay
of-
full
So it has
residential.
nothing to do with whether or not they can
No.
dig a new,
No, 61A is
Something.
just it's a tax relief.
okay.
And in terms of residential use, that's why you have your buffers that are gonna impact those properties.
Right.
So those, so,
All
That doesn't change. You know, that those buffers still exist, and we have to respect them as per your bylaw.
Okay,
All right.
cheers.
All right, does anybody want to speak any more on this? You're more than welcome, it's a public hearing. No?
I guess it all depends on what you guys' decision is.
All right, I mean, we're gonna ask that they, you know, we're gonna get a consultant of our choosing, and then we'll come back, and we're gonna continue this tonight and come back and have this map done a little bit more, depending on what this person finds. And it could come back looking exactly the same, you know, but we'll get a second set of eyes on it. All
And
right?
just so you know, we're just looking at the wetlands delineations now, but when it comes to these lots, they'll come before us for each one.
All of
Yeah, so like, we're not approving the lots right now, we're just approving the wetlands delineation.
No, we still have a ways to go, because once we get through with the ANRAD, we have to go through the planning board, as you noted
And we'll
earlier.
want you to come back, if you have a vested interest, to please come back to those hearings as well.
And also go to planning too, if you're interested.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
You go to
Yeah.
planning next?
All right.
Yeah, once we get the ANRAD approved, then we can go to planning board.
So, I will entertain a motion to have the conservation agent contract a wetlands expert to be paid for by the applicant to see if we can find out where this stream bed is. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to have Emil hire a consultant at the applicant's expense. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Two meetings from now, what do you think? How quickly do you think you can get somebody out there?
That's a good question. I think it's let's say 2 meetings from now, and if we can't get it done by then, we'll have to push it out a little bit further. But yeah, I know. Yeah, there's some other stuff coming up in April, so it could be a busy time for me.
Okay.
They'll put it in, you won't be here.
So I think it would be what, April, first meeting in May.
All right, let me, first meeting in May is the 7th. We have April 2nd and 16th, then we have a 3-week break till May 7th. So is that what you're saying?
Yep,
All right.
May 7th.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to continue this hearing until Wednesday, May 7th.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, been moved and second to continue till Wednesday, May 7th. All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
very much.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, next up, minutes. Minutes. Has everyone read the minutes?
Yes.
Does anyone have any questions, corrections, comments? No? All right,
I read them.
all right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as written.
So moved.
Second?
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of March 5th, 2025. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that's approved unanimously. And does anybody have anything else this evening?
No, I would just say that we have 5 applications for new public hearings on the next meeting, April 2nd. The house is on, or the guys who came before us for the ANRAD on Rochester Road have just applied for 4 house lots on that property.
Where's that?
So that will be on our next meeting, April 2nd.
Where is that now?
Rochester Road.
I know where it is, but were we there recently?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep, we were there
It's
for
just
ANRAD.
off Main Street,
Oh,
just
you mean
past the dump.
The one that,
Yep.
oh, yes. So they're
Where,
putting lots there.
where there was the
We
bog
actually-
that you questioned whether it was the
Yeah,
bog
yeah,
or not, and they
yeah,
went back in?
Oh, that road.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Wait, made into the borings.
Yes.
Yeah, right, correct.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's on our next
I
meeting.
have one thing I'd add. So these lots, like, confuse me. I'm the newest person here, but I don't understand, like, I was looking at the zoning bylaws with net usable land area, NULA, their calculations. And so it says that they can use 70% uplands, but I don't think they can use 30% active cranberry bogs according to our bylaws. So I personally want to talk to zoning about that. So I talked to Demetrius today, and they don't even go to zoning for this. They're just going right to planning. But in my view.
There isn't
They,
there isn't a zoning board. There's a zoning board of appeals
right,
that you go to after planning has made a decision you don't agree with.
okay. Well, maybe that explains it.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to them, well, I want to talk to zoning because reading the laws confuse me.
The planning issue.
All right, but planning is really who you should
Planning is also- I
speak
want to
to.
go to planning as well. Just because I think we're gonna see a lot of this. We've seen it on Southern.
Yes, we are.
So I want to understand it better.
Okay, the zoning board of appeals has a very narrow scope of what they can change.
Okay.
There are only 3 criteria. I don't remember offhand what they are. Something like this would probably not, they would probably not, or decide not to hear because it didn't meet the criteria of things they can rule on. Planning board is where this happens. And this
Where they
might be
talk.
something, if you're talking about the 30-70
Yeah.
split, that this is something that you might want to bring up to a member of the planning board, saying
Right.
these lots are going to come in front of you. Has nothing to do with the ANRAD, but
Right.
but when these come in front of you, make sure that you follow the 30-70 rule in allowing those.
It may have something to do with that, because the 65-foot buffer is included in the non-usable land.
It's
don't-
not supposed to be.
Yeah, so for the calculation of NULA, essentially what you do is you take the entire area of the lot and you subtract anything that's wetlands, anything that's bogs, anything that's, ponds, and anything that's 65-foot buffer from the total area, and then you calculate, do you have enough
60,000 square
NULA,
feet.
which is 60,000 square feet.
So it will have some significance, because even if they put the river in there.
If you have 70% of 60,000 feet.
No, that's the problem.
I see, I don't, I'm not, I
do you
have
mean?
not studied
I
this.
don't
So-
understand.
It's buildable area. You need to have 60,000 square feet of buildable area. The 70-30 rule is somewhat contradictory because they also say you can't ever include wetlands, ponds, anything within the 65-foot buffer. You can't include that ever in NULA. But then they say 70% has to be uplands. So it's somewhat contradictory, but I want that clarified. I think we all need it clarified.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, it has significance, because it's doing a lot of this now.
That's right.
Right,
We're gonna
so-
see this
so-
over and over. So it's just like I think the bylaws themselves are contradictory. And Saber, I can send you where the contradiction is, because I've spent a lot of time looking.
So what
at
you're
it.
saying is that you have to have 60,000 cleared land, and you can't, and that,
well, that wasn't the case on Lakeview Street at all.
It wasn't.
No,
That's
no.
correct. That's why I'm
no,
concerned.
no. So
So, yes,
they may be calculating incorrectly.
that's
is what you're
correct.
saying.
That's what
Yeah,
I believe is maybe the case,
right.
but I'm not an expert.
So you have to
I mean,
60,000 square feet is just clear land with no restrictions on it at all.
That's
what you're
right.
saying.
That's what it says in the bylaws, but it also
Despite the
says, it says
70-30
70% has to be uplands. Well, what is the 30% if it
Well,
can't be wetlands?
Oh, yeah, that is contradictory.
Well,
Yeah.
it is,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
it's planning, it's not us.
Yeah.
And
Okay, no, it's
I
not
wonder
us.
about some of the lots on Indian Street as well.
Right, yeah.
I just think it might behoove us to, I'm confused.
Well,
I'd
it
like to
it does
learn more.
involve us a little bit because of the 65-foot buffer.
It does.
Right.
Well-
So,
And wetlands.
a little bit, yeah.
And
yeah,
wetlands.
wetlands,
It
right.
says you can't
So-
use any
Right,
wetlands
so,
at all.
interesting.
That would change a lot in this town.
Yes, it would. So I'll
It
send
would, it would
you,
eliminate any building, every lot would require 60,000 square feet of upland outside the 65, or
Yeah, right, outside the 65-foot buffer.
outside the 65.
buildable, yeah.
Regardless of the wetlands, because if it's a wetlands, it's going to be 65, so he said it's
Right.
outside the 65.
Outside, yeah. I agree.
Yeah,
but
which is
I'm
definitely
an
not the
expert,
case
so
for these
No, it's
lots.
not.
as-
It's not.
as
But it's not
shown.
clear, though, I don't think, in the bylaws. It
It's
says,
not.
So-
It's contradictory, but that's why I need to talk to someone. I think the
Yeah, I would recommend talking to the town planner,
Yeah, talk
and
to
I'd be
Tom
happy
Bott.
to
Tom Bott,
talk to him
okay.
as well, and try and find out what I can. But yeah, again, this is new territory for all of us, so we should,
Right, right, and
Do
it's
some
their
research.
ruling, it's their.
It is, yeah.
They're the ones who have to rule on their bylaws, their own bylaws.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they've just forgotten what they are.
It's true. So I'm actually
Or
used
a different
AI to look at
interpretation.
the laws, and I think AI is seeing a discrepancy in the bylaws for zoning,
Okay.
so.
All right. Anyone else? Anything else? All right. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All right, Dave, second. All those in favor say aye.
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 We're out. Thank you, Area 58.